The rich swimmer always looked at the black lifeguard with contempt. During the storm, when the waters pulled him under, what the young man did left everyone in tears. Cole Thompson stared at the churning waters of the Colorado River, his dark skin glistening with sweat under the July sun. The lifeguard tower's worn wooden seat creaked as he leaned forward, scanning the water's surface. His last day. The thought sat heavy in his chest, like the humidity that pressed down on Grand Junction. "Hey, Cole." Jake, another lifeguard, called from below. "Weather reports showing storms later. Might get rough." Cole nodded, his eyes never leaving the water. "Yeah, I saw that. Let's keep extra watch on the shallow areas." Current's already picking up. The exclusive Riverside Club sprawled behind him, its pristine lawns and elaborate poolside cabanas a stark contrast to the wild river before him. A group of wealthy patrons lounged nearby, their whispers carrying up to his post. "I can't believe they're letting him go," a woman in an expensive swimsuit muttered. "He's the only one who really knows these waters." "Well, maybe if he'd gone to a proper school instead of that community college," her companion replied. Cole's jaw tightened, but he kept his face neutral. 3 years of this. 3 years of sideways glances and barely concealed contempt. But the pay was good enough to help his mom with the bills and save a little for college. His phone buzzed in his pocket. "Mom." "Hey, Mama," he answered, voice low. "Baby, you remember to pick up your sister's prescription?" His mother's voice carried the exhaustion of her night shift at the hospital. "Yeah, got it yesterday. I'll bring it home after my shift." Cole paused, watching a child venture too close to the deep water. He whistled sharply, and the kid's parent pulled him back. "How was work?" "Same as always. Double shift again tomorrow." She sighed. "You sure about quitting? Mr. Peterson said he'd give you a raise." "Mama, we talked about this. I need to focus on school. Can't keep putting it off." A commotion near the club entrance drew his attention. Mr. Richardson, the club owner, was escorting an elderly man in expensive golf attire. The man's white hair caught the sunlight, his bearing aristocratic despite his age. "That's William Thompson Sr.," Jake said, climbing up to Cole's station. "Owns half the real estate in town. Never seen him here before." Cole watched as Thompson Sr. surveyed the club grounds, his expression critical. Their eyes met briefly, and the old man's face hardened with familiar disapproval. "Yeah, well, won't have to see him again after today," Cole muttered. The afternoon dragged on, the air growing thicker with approaching storms. Cole's mind wandered to 3 years ago, the night that changed everything. His brother Marcus's car, wrapped around a tree in the rain. The funeral he couldn't afford. The scholarship lost because he had to work instead of attending college full-time. Mr. Peterson, his supervisor, approached the tower. "Cole, got a minute?" Cole climbed down, already knowing what was coming. "Listen, son," Peterson began, his weathered face concerned. "I know you want to go to school, but you're making a mistake. Good lifeguards are hard to find, especially ones who know this river like you do. I can bump you up to shift supervisor, better pay." "I appreciate it, Mr. Peterson, but I can't." Cole gestured to the river. "After Marcus, I needed this. Needed to make sure no other family went through that. But I can't stay here forever." Thunder rumbled in the distance. Peterson glanced at the darkening sky. "Storms coming in faster than predicted," he noted. "Might have to clear the water soon." Cole nodded, climbing back to his post. The wind had picked up, carrying the scent of rain. He watched the clouds roll in, dark and heavy with summer storms. Lightning flickered inside them, still too far to hear the thunder. His radio crackled. "Weather Service just issued a flash flood warning," the voice announced. "All stations prepare for evacuation procedures." The first fat drops of rain hit the wooden tower with hollow taps. Below, visitors began gathering their belongings, hurrying toward shelter. The wind gusted stronger, carrying leaves and debris across the manicured lawn. Cole grabbed his whistle, ready to signal the water's clearing. But something made him pause. Through the growing curtain of rain, he spotted an elderly figure moving toward the river's edge, white hair gleaming in the storm light. Thompson Sr. The old man stood too close to the water, seemingly mesmerized by the churning surface. Another gust of wind, stronger this time, and Cole saw him stumble. The radio crackled again. All units, begin immediate evacuation. Repeat, immediate evacuation. Flash flood waters approaching from upriver. Cole's heart pounded as he watched Thompson Sr. regain his balance. The old man turned to retreat from the water's edge, but his foot slipped on the wet grass. Time slowed. Cole saw it all with crystalline clarity. Thompson's arms pinwheeling, his body tilting backward, the splash as he hit the water. The current, already swollen with upstream rains, grabbed him instantly. Cole didn't hesitate. He hit his emergency button and grabbed his rescue tube, muscles already tensing for what was coming. 3 years of training, of watching this river, of learning its moods and currents, it all came down to this moment. As he climbed down from the tower, his mother's voice echoed in his head. "Baby, please be careful. I can't lose another son." "Sorry, Mama," he whispered and ran toward the river. The rain fell harder now, obscuring visibility. Thunder boomed overhead, but Cole barely heard it. His entire focus narrowed to one point, the white-haired figure being swept downstream, already struggling against the current. His last shift wasn't over yet. "Clear the water. Everyone out now." Cole's voice cut through the thundering rain as he sprinted toward the river's edge. Behind him, Jake was already radioing for backup, his words lost in the wind. "Sir, hold on," Cole shouted to Thompson Sr., who thrashed against the current 20 yards out. The old man's expensive golf shirt made him visible despite the downpour, but the river pulled him farther with each second. Cole's fingers fumbled with the rescue tube strap, securing it across his chest. His training kicked in automatically. Assess the situation, identify the safest approach, establish contact with the victim. "Get the throw rope," he yelled to Jake, who was already running toward the emergency equipment shed. The rain hammered down harder, making the grass treacherous underfoot. A crowd began gathering despite the storm, their faces pale in the darkening afternoon. Cole heard gasps and screams as Thompson Sr. disappeared briefly under the surface, then bobbed up again, coughing and flailing. "Someone call 911. A woman's voice pierced through the chaos. "Already done," Jake shouted back, returning with the throw rope. "Emergency services are en route." Cole grabbed the rope, testing its strength with practiced hands. "Mr. Thompson," he called out, "I'm going to throw you a rope. Try to grab it when it comes near you." The old man didn't respond. His movements were becoming less coordinated, early signs of exhaustion and panic that Cole had seen too many times before. "Stand back," Cole ordered the gathering crowd. He swung the rope in a wide arc, aiming ahead of Thompson's position to account for the current. The weighted end sailed through the rain, landing just beyond the struggling figure. "Grab the rope," Cole shouted. Thompson's arms flailed, fingers grazing the line, but failing to grip it. The current swept him past before he could make another attempt. "Shit," Cole muttered, pulling the rope back for another throw. His heart pounded against his ribs, each beat screaming that they were running out of time. A familiar voice cut through the storm. "Cole, baby, what are you doing?" His mother stood at the edge of the crowd, still in her nursing scrubs. She must have come straight from her shift to pick him up. The fear in her eyes hit him harder than the rain. "Get another tube ready," Cole told Jake, ignoring his mother's presence. He couldn't think about her now, couldn't think about Marcus. Focus on the job. The second throw fell short, the rope's end dancing uselessly in the churning water. Thompson Sr. was being pulled toward the bridge pylons, a death trap of swirling currents and submerged debris. "Cole, no!" His mother's voice cracked with terror as she realized what he was planning. "Please, not you too." But Cole was already moving, shrugging off his shirt and kicking off his shoes. The river roared in his ears, drowning out the shouts behind him. This was what he'd trained for, what he'd sworn to do after Marcus. "Jake, follow with the backup line. If I raise one arm, throw it. 2 arms means we need emergency assistance." "The current's too strong," Jake protested, gripping Cole's shoulder. "Wait for rescue services dash. He'll be dead by then." Cole shrugged off his friend's hand. "Just be ready with that line." The water hit him like a physical blow, shockingly cold despite the summer heat. Cole forced himself to move with purpose, not fighting the current directly, but angling across it, letting his rescue tube cut through the chop. Behind him, he heard his mother's prayers mixing with the storm. Ahead, Thompson Sr.'s white hair appeared and disappeared in the waves, moving steadily toward the bridge's deadly embrace. Cole's powerful strokes ate up the distance, but the current fought him every inch. Debris churned past, branches, trash, a partially submerged log that nearly caught his legs. The rain fell in stinging sheets, making it hard to keep track of his target. "Mr. Thompson," he shouted when he got within earshot. "Sir, I'm coming to help. Try to stay calm." The old man's head turned at his voice, eyes wide with fear and something else, recognition, maybe, or shame. Then a wave swept over him, and he went under. Cold dove, the murky water stinging his eyes. His hands swept through the darkness, searching, hoping. His lungs began to burn. Just a little longer. Just a little. His fingers brushed fabric, and he grabbed hold, pulling upward with all his strength. They broke the surface together, Thompson Sr., gasping and coughing. "I've got you," Cole panted, maneuvering the rescue tube between them. "Put your arms over this. Don't try to grab me." The old man complied weakly, his previous aristocratic bearing stripped away by fear and exhaustion. Up close, Cole could see the blood where debris had struck his head. Not serious, but enough to worry about. "Help's coming," Cole assured him, though he wasn't sure Thompson could hear over the storm. "Just hold on to the tube. I'll get us out of this." They were still being pulled downstream, but Cole's presence and the rescue tube had stabilized their position. Now came the hard part, getting back to shore through the strengthening current. Cole raised one arm, signaling Jake. The backup line arced toward them, but the wind caught it, sending it wide. A second throw followed immediately, this one finding its mark. "Grab the rope!" Cole shouted to Thompson, but the old man's fingers were too numb to grip it. His eyes were starting to lose focus, hypothermia setting in despite the summer weather. The bridge loomed closer, its pylons creating dangerous eddies in the current. Cole could hear the water churning against the concrete supports, a sound that had haunted his nightmares since Marcus. A flash of lightning illuminated the scene. The gathered crowd on shore, his mother's stricken face, Jake preparing another throw, and ahead, Cole's blood ran cold. The bridge wasn't their only problem. Beyond it, barely visible through the rain, white water churned where the river cut through a narrow gorge. The rapids. If they didn't make it to shore before the bridge, they wouldn't make it at all. "Jake!" Cole's voice rose above the storm. "One more throw. Make it count." The rope sailed out one last time as thunder cracked overhead. Cole watched its arc with desperate intensity, knowing everything depended on this moment. Time seemed to slow as the line descended toward them. Cole could see individual raindrops illuminated by another flash of lightning. Could hear his mother's voice carrying across the water. "Please, God, not again." The rope slapped into the water just ahead of them, and Cole lunged for it with his free hand, his other arm locked around the rescue tube, supporting Thompson Sr. His fingers closed around rough fibers. The current yanked hard, threatening to tear the rope away. Cole's shoulders screamed in protest as he was pulled between the downstream force and the lifeline to shore. The old man's weight dragged at him, the rescue tube shifting dangerously. "Pull!" Cole shouted toward the shore, not knowing if they could hear him over the storm. "Pull now!" The bridge's shadow fell over them as the rope went taut. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, they began moving toward the bank. But the river wasn't done with them yet. A deafening crack split the air. Cole felt the rope go slack in his hands before his mind registered what had happened. The current seized them immediately, spinning them toward the bridge's columns. "No!" He heard Jake shout from the shore. The rope snapped. Cole's mind raced. The rescue tube kept them afloat, but now they were completely at the river's mercy. Thompson Sr.'s head lolled against the tube, his eyes barely open. "Stay with me, sir," Cole shouted, fighting to position them away from the pylons. "I need you conscious." The old man's lips moved, forming words Cole couldn't hear over the storm. His white hair was plastered to his face, making him look vulnerable, human. so different from the man who'd looked down his nose at Cole just hours earlier. The first pylon rushed past, close enough for Cole to feel the turbulence it created. Water sprayed in his face as they were sucked into the column's wake. He kicked hard, angling their bodies to ride the current rather than fight it. "Cole!" His mother's voice carried over the water. She was running along the shoreline, keeping pace with them. "Baby, hold on. They're calling in the rescue helicopter." But Cole knew they didn't have that kind of time. The rapids lay ahead, and in these conditions, they'd be a meat grinder. He had maybe 2 minutes to figure something out before the river made the decision for them. A memory flashed through his mind. Marcus teaching him to swim in this same river years ago during calmer days. "The water's stronger than you, little brother," he'd said. "Don't fight it. Use it." Cole scanned the riverbank desperately. The current had pushed them to the far side, where a line of old willows dipped their branches into the water. "If he could just—" "Mr. Thompson," he said, pulling the old man closer to hear him. "Sir, I need you to hold on to this tube, no matter what. Can you do that?" Thompson's eyes focused slightly. He managed a weak nod. "Good. When I say now, take the deepest breath you can." The willows approached rapidly. Cole positioned himself on the downstream side of the rescue tube, using his body to steer their trajectory. The roar of the rapids grew louder. A branch dipped low over the water. "One chance. Now!" Cole shouted. He saw Thompson's chest expand with effort. Then Cole released the tube with one hand and reached up. His fingers brushed the branch, slick with rain. For a heart-stopping moment, he thought he'd missed. Then his hand closed around it, and pain shot through his shoulder as their momentum yanked against his grip. "Got it!" he yelled, though he wasn't sure who he was telling. The branch bent dangerously under their weight, but held. Using the branch's flexibility, Cole swung them in an arc toward the bank. The current fought him, trying to tear them away, but he held on. His muscles screamed. The branch creaked. They were almost there. The bank was only feet away now. Cole could see rescue workers positioning themselves with ropes. Then the branch snapped. The current grabbed them again, but they were closer to shore now. Cole kicked desperately, still holding the rescue tube with one hand. His feet brushed something solid, a submerged rock. He pushed off it, propelling them closer to the bank. "Throw the lines," someone shouted. Multiple ropes hit the water around them. Cole grabbed one with his free hand and felt others falling across his back. Hands reached down from the bank. "We've got you." Jake's voice. "Let go of the tube. We'll pull you both up." But Cole couldn't let go. His fingers wouldn't obey. 3 years of watching this river take things, his brother, his dreams, his sense of security, had locked his grip. "Cole!" His mother again. "Baby, please." The current pulled at them, but the ropes held. Slowly, inch by inch, they were dragged toward the shore. Cole felt hands grabbing his arms, his shoulders, pulling him up the muddy bank. Someone took Thompson Sr.'s weight, lifting the old man to safety. Only then did Cole's fingers release the rescue tube. It shot downstream instantly, disappearing into the rapids they'd barely escaped. He lay on his back in the rain, chest heaving. People crowded around, voices overlapping. "Get the medics. He's not breathing right. Make room. Someone get blankets." His mother's face appeared above him, tears mixing with the rain. "Oh, baby. My brave, stupid boy." Cole tried to sit up, but his muscles had other ideas. "Thompson?" he managed to ask. "They're working on him," Jake said from somewhere nearby. "EMTs are here. You just stay down." Through the crowd's legs, Cole could see paramedics huddled around Thompson Sr.'s still form. One was performing chest compressions while another set up oxygen. "Come on," Cole whispered. "Not after all that. Not when they'd made it so far." Thunder rolled overhead, but the storm's fury was weakening. The rain began to slack off, though the river still churned angrily below. A sound cut through the chaos, coughing, wet and violent. The paramedics' postures changed from urgent to relieved. "He's breathing on his own," one called out. "Pulse is stabilizing." Cole let his head fall back against the mud. He felt hands checking him for injuries, heard his mother arguing with someone about moving him, saw the rescue helicopter circling uselessly overhead. but his eyes kept going back to the river, to the rapids that had almost claimed them, to the spot where Marcus's car had gone in 3 years ago on another stormy night. "You did good, man," Jake said quietly, crouching beside him. "That was the craziest thing I've ever seen." Cole didn't answer. His body felt distant, disconnected. The world had narrowed to the sound of rain, his mother's hand in his, and the steady beep of medical equipment being set up nearby. Someone draped a blanket over him. He hadn't realized he was shivering. Through the thinning rain, he watched as they loaded Thompson Sr. into an ambulance. The old man's eyes were open now, and they found Cole's just before the doors closed. There was something different in that look, something that hadn't been there before. The second ambulance arrived for Cole, but he waved it off. "I can walk," he insisted, though his legs shook when he tried to stand. His mother and Jake helped him up, supporting him between them. As they made their way to the vehicle, Cole glanced back at the river one last time. The water still churned, dark and powerful, but it hadn't won. Not this time. Marcus would be proud, his mother whispered, squeezing his hand. Cole nodded, too tired to speak. The adrenaline was fading, leaving him drained and sore. But somewhere beneath the exhaustion, he felt something else. Peace, maybe. Or purpose. Or just the simple satisfaction of knowing that, on his last day as a lifeguard, he'd done exactly what he'd sworn to do 3 years ago. Make sure no other family felt the losses had endured. As they helped him into the ambulance, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time that afternoon. The emergency room buzzed with activity. Cole sat on the edge of a hospital bed, his mother hovering nearby as a doctor examined him. His muscles ached with every movement, and his shoulder throbbed where he'd grabbed the tree branch. "Any difficulty breathing?" the doctor asked, pressing a stethoscope to his back. "No, just sore." Cole winced as she probed his shoulder. "You've got some muscle strain here," she said, "and mild hypothermia, despite the summer weather. We'll want to keep you overnight for observation." Cole started to protest, but his mother cut him off. "You're staying, baby. No arguments." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Mrs. Williams? There's someone here asking about your son." Jake stepped into the room, still in his wet lifeguard uniform. "Hey, man, how you holding up?" "I'm fine," Cole said automatically. "Any word on Mr. Thompson?" "That's actually why I'm here. He's stabilized. They've got him in the ICU, but his vitals are good." Jake shifted uncomfortably. "Thing is, his family's here. They're asking to see you." Cole's mother straightened. "He needs rest." "Mom, it's okay." Cole swung his legs off the bed, ignoring the wave of dizziness. "I should check on him anyway." "At least use the wheelchair," the doctor insisted, gesturing to one by the door. Cole wanted to refuse, but his shaking legs made the decision for him. His mother wheeled him through the hospital corridors, Jake walking alongside. "The footage is everywhere," Jake said quietly. "Someone filmed the whole thing on their phone. It's all over social media." Cole groaned. "Great." They reached the ICU waiting area. A group of well-dressed people stood up as they approached. Cole recognized Thompson Sr.'s aristocratic features in their faces. A middle-aged man stepped forward. "You must be Cole Williams. I'm William Thompson, Jr." His eyes were red-rimmed. "You saved my father's life." Cole shifted uncomfortably in the wheelchair. "Just doing my job, sir." "No." Thompson Jr.'s voice cracked. "What you did went far beyond duty. Especially considering—" He trailed off, looking ashamed. "How is he?" Cole asked, changing the subject. "Asking for you, actually. Would you?" Thompson Jr. gestured toward the ICU doors. Cole nodded. His mother helped him stand, supporting him as they entered the unit. Thompson Sr. lay in the hospital bed, looking smaller somehow, without his expensive clothes and commanding presence. Monitors beeped steadily around him. His eyes opened as they approached. "Mr. Williams," he said, his voice hoarse. "Please sit." Cole lowered himself into a chair beside the bed, his mother standing protectively behind him. "I owe you an apology," Thompson Sr. began. "Sir, you don't dash, I do." The old man's hand trembled as he reached for a cup of water. Cole's mother stepped forward to help him drink. "Thank you, ma'am. You raised a remarkable son." "Yes, sir, I did." Her voice held a quiet pride. Thompson Sr. turned back to Cole. "I judged you. Wrongly. Shamefully. And then you risked your life to save mine, without hesitation. Anyone would have done the same, Cole said. No. Thompson Sr.'s eyes were sharp now, fully alert. They wouldn't have. You saw someone in need, and you acted. Despite how I treated you. Despite the danger. He paused, gathering strength. My grandfather built his fortune by seeing potential where others saw nothing. I lost sight of that wisdom. But today you reminded me. A nurse entered, checking monitors. 5 minutes, she warned. Thompson Sr. nodded. Young man, I understand you're planning to attend community college? Yes, sir. Starting next semester. What do you want to study? Cole hesitated. Emergency medicine. I want to be a paramedic. The old man smiled. Perfect. William, he called out. Thompson Jr. appeared in the doorway. Get Howard on the phone. Tell him to set up the scholarship fund we discussed. Full ride, plus expenses. He turned back to Cole. If you're willing to accept, of course. Cole's mother gasped. He felt her hands tighten on his shoulders. Mr. Thompson, Cole started. I can't dash, you can, and you will. Thompson Sr.'s voice regained some of its old authority. Consider it an investment in the future. This community needs more young men like you. Before Cole could respond, the nurse returned. Time's up. Mr. Thompson needs rest. As they wheeled him out, Cole heard Thompson Sr. say quietly, Thank you, son, for everything. In the hallway, Thompson Jr. was already on the phone. He covered the mouthpiece. The paperwork will be ready tomorrow. We'll have our foundation handle everything. Cole's head spun, and not just from exhaustion. I don't know what to say. Say yes, his mother whispered. Baby, this is what you've worked for. Thompson Jr. ended his call. There's more we need to discuss, but it can wait until you're stronger. Rest now. You've more than earned it. Back in his hospital room, Cole finally let exhaustion take over. His mother tucked the blankets around him, just like when he was small. Get some sleep, baby, she said, kissing his forehead. As he drifted off, Cole thought about the river. About Marcus. About second chances and the strange ways they sometimes came. Outside his window, the last remnants of the storm cleared away, revealing a sky full of stars. He dreamed of water, but for the first time in 3 years, he wasn't afraid of it. Code Blue. ICU. A voice blared over the hospital intercom, jerking Cole awake. His heart raced as he heard running footsteps in the hallway. His mother wasn't in the room, probably getting coffee. He sat up, ignoring his protesting muscles. The intercom crackled again. Code Blue. ICU room 4. Thompson's room. Cole's legs nearly gave out when he stood, but he grabbed the 4-pole for support. He had to know. In the hallway, medical staff rushed past him toward the ICU. He followed slowly, each step a battle against exhaustion and pain. Through the ICU windows, he could see a flurry of activity around Thompson Sr.'s bed. The monitors showed flat lines where there should have been peaks and valleys. Thompson Jr. stood pressed against the wall, watching helplessly as doctors performed CR on his father. His face was ashen. Cole felt his mother's hand on his arm. She'd appeared beside him, a forgotten coffee cup in her other hand. Baby, you shouldn't be up, she said softly. But Cole couldn't move. He watched as the medical team worked, their movements precise and urgent. He'd seen this before, 3 years ago, when they'd worked on Marcus. Time stretched like taffy. Each compression on Thompson Sr.'s chest seemed to take an eternity. Then, finally, a beep. Another. The flat line on the monitor jumped back to life. The tension in the room deflated like a punctured balloon. Thompson Jr. sagged against the wall, tears streaming down his face. A doctor emerged, looking tired but satisfied. He's stable again. The hypothermia caused some cardiac issues, but we caught it in time. Cole released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Back to bed, his mother insisted. Now. This time he didn't argue. As she helped him back to his room, he caught a glimpse of Thompson Sr. Through the ICU window. The old man's eyes were open, and they found Cole's for just a moment. In that look was understanding. They'd both been given second chances today, and neither of them intended to waste them. The morning sun filtered through the hospital window, casting warm light across Cole's bed. His discharge papers lay on the side table, signed and ready. His mother had gone to pull the car around, leaving him alone to change into the fresh clothes Jake had brought. Every muscle protested as he pulled on his shirt. The doctor had warned him he'd be sore for days, maybe weeks. His shoulder felt like it had been yanked out of its socket, which according to the x-rays it nearly had been. A knock at the door interrupted his struggle with his shoelaces. Thompson Jr. stood in the doorway, looking as if he hadn't slept. "May I come in?" he asked. Cole nodded, straightening up with effort. "How's your father?" "Stable. They're moving him out of ICU today." Thompson Jr. entered the room, holding a leather briefcase. "I wanted to catch you before you left. There are some things we need to discuss." He sat in the visitor's chair and opened the briefcase, pulling out a stack of papers. "The scholarship paperwork is ready. Full tuition, books, housing if you want it, plus a monthly stipend for expenses." Cole stared at the papers. The numbers made his head spin. "Sir, this is too much. It's not nearly enough." Thompson Jr. placed the papers on the bed. "My father, he's not an easy man. He has certain views that—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Views that I've spent years trying to change. Yesterday, you did more than save his life. You shattered a lifetime of prejudice." "I just did what needed doing," Cole said quietly. "Exactly." Thompson Jr. smiled. "That's precisely why you deserve this. No calculations, no prejudices, just seeing what needed to be done and doing it." A nurse appeared with a wheelchair. "Ready to go, Mr. Williams?" "Actually," Thompson Jr. said, "could you give us a few more minutes?" The nurse nodded and stepped out. "There's something else," Thompson Jr. continued, pulling out another document. "My father wants to set up a trust for your family." Cole's breath caught. "A trust? To cover your mother's mortgage, your sister's education, healthcare costs, everything." The room seemed to tilt. Cole gripped the edge of the bed. "Why?" "Because money doesn't mean anything if it's not used to make the world better." Thompson Jr. leaned forward. "My father built his fortune on real estate, but his father, my grandfather, he made his money saving lives. He developed emergency medical equipment, invented a new type of defibrillator. He believed that wealth carried responsibility. He spread the papers out. $8 million, managed by our family's foundation. Your family will never have to worry about money again." Cole's vision blurred. He thought about his mother's double shifts, his sisters sharing textbooks, the constant calculations of which bill could wait another month. "Your father," Cole started, "is fully aware and insistent. He signed the papers this morning." Thompson Jr. pulled out a pen. "All we need is your signature." Cole's hand trembled as he reached for the pen. "Can I think about it?" "Of course." Thompson Jr. "Gather the papers. Take all the time you need. We'll be here." The nurse returned with the wheelchair. As Cole settled into it, Thompson Jr. handed him a business card. "Call me when you're ready." And Cole? "Thank you for everything." His mother was waiting at the hospital entrance with their old Honda. She helped him into the passenger seat, fussing with his seatbelt like she used to when he was small. "You're awful quiet, baby," she said as they pulled out of the parking lot. Cole stared at the business card in his hands. "They want to give us $8 million. The car swerved slightly. "What?" He told her about Thompson Jr.'s visit, about the scholarship, the trust, everything. When he finished, they were parked in their driveway, but neither made a move to get out. "That would change everything," his mother said softly. "Yeah." Cole looked at their house, the peeling paint, the sagging gutters, the patched roof. "But is it right? Taking their money? You saved that man's life." "That was my job." His mother turned to face him. "No, baby. Your job was to blow a whistle and call for help. What you did." She touched his cheek. "That was who you are. Just like Marcus was." Cole's throat tightened. "I keep thinking about him. About that night." "Me too." She wiped her eyes. "You know what he'd say about this?" "Take the money, dummy." Cole mimicked his brother's voice, and they both laughed. "Exactly." She squeezed his hand. "Sometimes blessings come from strange places. Doesn't make them any less blessed." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the neighborhood kids play in the summer morning. A few rode bikes past their house, waving excitedly when they spotted Cole. "You're famous now," his mother said. "Jake showed me the video. It's got hundreds of thousands of views." Cole groaned. Great. You should see the comments. Hero lifeguard saves millionaire. Young man risks life in dramatic rescue. My favorite was faith in humanity restored. They don't know the whole story, don't they? She gestured to the business card. Seems to me they got it exactly right. A young man saw someone in trouble and helped, no matter who they were or what they thought of him. That's the whole story. The front door opened, and his sisters burst out, running toward the car. They'd been staying with their aunt while their mother was at the hospital. Cole! They practically yanked the car door off its hinges. Are you okay? Did you really swim in the rapids? Everyone at school's talking about it. He let them help him out of the car, their chatter washing over him. Inside, the house smelled like his aunt's cooking. She'd probably spent the morning stress baking. Cole sank into his favorite spot on the couch, his muscles grateful for the rest. His phone buzzed with another message from Jake. News vans outside the club. Everyone wants to interview you. He turned off the phone. His youngest sister curled up next to him, careful of his injured shoulder. Are you a superhero now? She asked seriously. Cole looked at the business card still in his hand, then at his family moving around their worn but love-filled home, at his mother, who worked so hard for so little, at his sisters, who deserved every opportunity. He thought about Thompson Sr.'s face when he'd apologized, about second chances and responsibility and what it meant to truly save someone. No, he told his sister, not a superhero, just trying to do what's right. He pulled out his phone and dialed the number on the card. It rang twice before Thompson Jr. answered. Cole, have you made a decision? He looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. Yes, sir, Cole said. I have. Sometimes the hardest part of accepting help was admitting you deserved it. But as Cole listened to Thompson Jr. arrange a meeting for the next day, he realized something. This wasn't just about money. It was about breaking cycles of poverty, of prejudice, of pain. It was about proving that one moment of pure humanity could change everything. Marcus would have understood that. Outside, the summer sun climbed higher, promising another scorching Colorado day. But for the first time in years, Cole felt like he could finally stop swimming against the current. The Thompson family's law office occupied the entire top floor of Grand Junction's tallest building. Cole stood in the elevator with his mother, both dressed in their Sunday best. His shoulders still ached, but he'd managed to get his arm through the sleeve of his only suit jacket. You okay, baby? His mother asked, straightening his tie for the third time. Yeah. Cole took a deep breath. Just nervous? The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area with floor-to-ceiling windows. Thompson Jr. waited for them, dressed casually in comparison to their formal attire. Cole, Mrs. Williams, thank you for coming. He gestured toward a conference room. Please, this way. The room had a long table of polished wood. Lawyers sat on one side, papers spread before them. An older man in an expensive suit stood as they entered. Howard Mitchell, he introduced himself. I handle the Thompson family's legal affairs. He pulled out chairs for them. Shall we begin? The next hour passed in a blur of legal terms and explanations. Cole tried to follow it all: trust funds, investment strategies, educational endowments. His mother asked careful questions, taking notes in her neat nurse's handwriting. Now, Mitchell said, sliding a thick document across the table, this is the main trust agreement. $8 million, managed by our firm, with monthly distributions and provisions for education, healthcare, and housing. Cole stared at the number on the page. It didn't seem real. There's one more thing, Thompson Jr. said. My father wanted to be here, but his doctors insisted he rest. He recorded this for you. He pressed a button on a laptop, and Thompson Sr.'s face appeared on a large screen on the wall. The old man looked better than he had in the hospital, though still pale. Cole, he began, I hope you'll forgive an old man for not being there in person. I wanted to explain why this is so important to me. He shifted in his chair, wincing slightly. 40 years ago, I made my first million in real estate. I was proud, arrogant. I thought I'd done it all myself. Then one day, I was reviewing some old family papers and found a document from 1924. He held up a yellowed paper. This is a deed transfer. It shows that my grandfather's first property, the one that started our family's fortune, was sold to him by a black man named William Turner. Mr. Turner sold it well below market value because my grandfather had saved his son's life during a fire. Thompson Sr.'s eyes grew distant. My grandfather never forgot that kindness. He used the profit from that property to start his medical equipment company, which saved countless lives. All because one man looked past the prejudices of his time and helped another. He leaned toward the camera. Cole, when you pulled me from that river, you didn't see a rich white man who'd look down on you. You saw someone who needed help. You reminded me of what my grandfather taught me, that real wealth isn't in what we own, but in what we give back. His voice grew stronger. This trust isn't charity. It's an investment in the kind of future my grandfather believed in. One where people are judged by their actions, not their appearance. Where kindness is rewarded and cycles of prejudice are broken. Cole felt his mother's hand grip his. Use it well, Thompson Sr. continued. Study hard. Help others. Make this world a little better like you did for me. That's all I ask. The screen went dark. Silence filled the conference room. Mitchell cleared his throat. Well, shall we proceed with the signatures? Cole picked up the pen with a steady hand. This time, there was no hesitation. As they signed paper after paper, Thompson Jr. spoke quietly. There's one more thing. The Riverside Club's board of directors met this morning. They want to establish a scholarship program for minority lifeguards. In your name, Cole looked up. Really? Times are changing. Sometimes they just need a push. Thompson Jr. smiled. What do you think? Cole thought about other kids like him, wanting to help but facing barriers. I think it's a great idea. After the last document was signed, Mitchell gathered everything into folders. Congratulations, he said. The first distribution will be processed today. Outside the office, Cole's mother finally let her tears fall. Your father would be so proud, she whispered. Both your fathers? Cole hugged her carefully, mindful of his shoulder. Marcus, too. Oh, baby. She cupped his face. Marcus especially. They rode the elevator down in comfortable silence. In the lobby, a small crowd of reporters waited, but Thompson Jr.'s security team guided them to a side exit. One last thing, Thompson Jr. said before they left. Father's being released tomorrow. He'd like you to visit, if you feel up to it. Cole nodded. I'd like that. In the car, his mother didn't start the engine immediately. You know this changes everything, right? Yeah. Cole looked at the stack of papers in his lap. But maybe that's good. Maybe some things need to change. She touched the cross she always wore, the one Cole's father had given her. Your daddy used to say that God works in mysterious ways. What do you think he'd say about all this? She smiled. He'd say what he always said, do right by others, and right will find its way back to you. Cole thought about Thompson Sr.'s story, about his grandfather and William Turner, about how acts of kindness could echo through generations. His phone buzzed, a text from Jake. Dude, you're trending on Twitter. Hashtag Hero Lifeguard. Cole laughed and showed his mother. She shook her head, smiling. Famous and rich. Don't let it go to your head. Never. He looked out at the city, his city, but somehow different now. Full of possibilities he'd never dared imagine before. I'm still me. Just me with a chance to do more. She started the car. Where to first? Cole thought for a moment. The river. She gave him a questioning look. I need to see it, he explained. To remember. She understood. They drove in silence to the Riverside Club. The parking lot was empty. The club was closed for repairs after the storm. Cole walked to the edge of the water. It flowed peacefully now, giving no hint of its fury 2 days ago. The rescue tube he'd lost to the rapids had washed up downstream, battered but intact. He picked it up, feeling its familiar weight. You're not thinking of going back to lifeguarding, are you? His mother asked, worry creeping into her voice. No, Cole said, but I'm not running from the water anymore either. He looked downstream, toward the bridge where they'd almost lost everything. Marcus would want me to face it. His mother wrapped an arm around him. Together, they watched the river flow, carrying its endless stories toward whatever lay ahead. Some of those stories were endings, some were beginnings, and some, like Cole's, were both at once. He held the rescue tube a moment longer, then set it carefully on the guard station steps. He wouldn't need it anymore, but someone else would, And maybe they'd remember his story and know that sometimes the current that seems strongest against you is the one carrying you exactly where you need to go. The morning paper sat on the Williams' kitchen table. Cole's face splashed across the front page. Local lifeguard's heroic rescue transforms lives. He pushed it aside, focusing on his breakfast. His shoulder had improved enough that he could lift a coffee cup without wincing. "You should at least read it," his mother said, sliding the paperback toward him. They interviewed Mr. Peterson. Cole skimmed the article. His former supervisor had called him the finest lifeguard I've ever worked with. The story also mentioned the new scholarship program at the Riverside Club, already funded for its first 5 recipients. His phone buzzed. Another message from Jake. "TV crews outside the club again. Everyone wants to know when you're coming back." "I'm not," Cole typed back. "I know, man, but you're missed." A knock at the door interrupted his reply. His mother answered it to find a delivery man holding an enormous gift basket. "For Cole Williams," the man said, checking his clipboard. "From the Grand Junction Chamber of Commerce." Cole helped his mother unpack it. Local specialty foods, gift certificates, and a formal letter inviting him to be Grand Marshal in the upcoming summer parade. "That's the 3rd basket this week," his mother said, adding the cookies to their overflowing kitchen counter. "The hospital sent one, remember? And the mayor's office." "At least people are eating well," Cole joked, but his smile faded as he looked at the pile of unopened mail and messages. Everyone wanted something: interviews, appearances, statements. The story had gone national, picked up by major networks. His phone rang constantly with unfamiliar numbers. "Baby," his mother said gently, "you can't hide forever." "I'm not hiding. I just—" He gestured helplessly at the attention surrounding him. "This isn't why I did it." "I know." She sat beside him. "But maybe all this attention can do some good. Show people that heroes come in all colors." Before Cole could respond, his phone rang again. This time it was Thompson Jr. "Cole, Father's asking for you. He's having a good day, and the doctors say short visits are fine now." Cole looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. The hospital's private wing felt different from the emergency room where he'd spent that first night. Soft lighting, carpeted floors, original artwork on the walls. Thompson Sr.'s room had a view of the mountains. The old man sat up in bed when Cole entered, looking stronger than he had in the video message. "Ah, there's my hero." "Sir, you don't have to dash nonsense." Thompson Sr. gestured to a chair. "Sit. We need to talk." Cole sat, noting how the old man's hand still shook slightly as he reached for his water glass. "I saw your picture in the paper," Thompson Sr. said. "You don't look comfortable with all the attention." "No, sir." "Good. That means you did what you did for the right reasons." He leaned back against his pillows. "But now you have a platform, whether you want it or not. The question is, what will you do with it?" Cole hadn't thought about it that way. "What do you mean?" "When my grandfather received that property from William Turner, he didn't just use it to make money. He used his success to help others, to create opportunities." Thompson Sr.'s eyes were sharp. "You have that same chance now." "I'm just a lifeguard." "Was a lifeguard," Cole corrected himself. "No, you're a symbol now. Of courage, of breaking barriers, of judging people by their actions rather than their appearance." Thompson Sr. coughed, and Cole helped him sip some water. "Thank you. You see? Still helping an old fool who didn't deserve it." "Everyone deserves help, sir." "Exactly." Thompson Sr.'s voice strengthened. "That's the message people need to hear. Not from an old man like me, but from you. A young man who proved it with actions, not words." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "5 minutes, Mr. Thompson." The old man nodded. "Cole, I've lived a long life. Made plenty of mistakes. Let prejudices blind me to people's true worth. But you gave me a chance to see things differently, to make amends. Don't you think others deserve that same chance?" Cole thought about the scholarship program, about other kids who might need to see someone like them succeeding. "Maybe you're right." "Of course I'm right." Thompson Sr. smiled. "Now, will you at least consider giving one interview? Let people hear your story." "I'll think about it." "Good man." Thompson Sr.'s eyes were getting heavy. "William is handling the trust details?" "Yes, sir. Everything's set up." "Excellent. He fought against his drooping eyelids. You know, I never properly thanked you. You've done more than enough, sir. No. Thompson Sr. reached for Cole's hand. Thank you for showing an old man that character isn't about color. It's about choices, about doing what's right, no matter the cost. The nurse returned. Time's up. Cole stood. Rest well, sir. Cole. Thompson Sr. called as he reached the door. Make it count. All of it. The money, the attention, the opportunity. Make it count. Outside the hospital, Cole sat in his car, thinking about Thompson Sr.'s words. His phone buzzed again, another interview request, this time from a major network. Instead of declining, he stared at the message. Maybe it was time to stop running from the attention. Time to use it, like Thompson Sr. said. He typed a reply. I'll do the interview on one condition. It has to include a segment about the new scholarship program. The response came immediately. Absolutely. When would you like to schedule? Cole looked up at the hospital window, then at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The face looking back at him was different somehow. Older maybe, more certain. He thought about Marcus, about his father, about all the people who'd helped shape him, about Thompson Sr. and second chances, about responsibility and opportunity and making things count. His phone buzzed again. Jake, sending him a video of kids at the Riverside Club, all wearing T-shirts with Hero Lifeguard printed on them. Black kids, white kids, Hispanic kids, all playing together in the water. Something shifted in Cole's chest, a warmth that felt like purpose. He typed another message to the network. Tomorrow. Let's do it tomorrow. Then he called Thompson Jr. About that scholarship program? I'd like to help set it up. Really do it right? I was hoping you'd say that, Thompson Jr. replied. Come by the office tomorrow. We'll get started. As Cole drove home, the city seemed different. Not because of the money or the attention, but because he finally understood what Thompson Sr. meant. Sometimes saving a life meant more than just pulling someone from the water. Sometimes it meant showing others the way forward, breaking down barriers, building bridges. His mother was right. He couldn't hide forever. And maybe he didn't need to. He had a new mission now, a new way to be a lifeguard, even without the rescue tube and tower. This time, he was saving something bigger than one life. He was helping save the future, one opportunity at a time. And that was worth all the attention in the world. The television studio lights felt hot on Cole's face as he sat across from the interviewer, a nationally known anchor who'd flown in specifically for this story. Behind the cameras, his mother sat with Thompson Jr., both giving him encouraging nods. So, Cole, the anchor began, take us back to that moment. What went through your mind when you saw Mr. Thompson in the water? Cole shifted in his chair, thankful for the media training Thompson Jr. had arranged the day before. Honestly, nothing complicated. Someone needed help. That's all that mattered. Even though Mr. Thompson had shown prejudice toward you earlier, that wasn't relevant. Cole met the anchor's eyes. When someone's drowning, you don't stop to think about who they are or what they think of you. You just act. The anchor nodded appreciatively. Your brother Marcus died in an accident 3 years ago. Did that influence your decision to become a lifeguard? Cole felt the familiar tightness in his chest at Marcus's name. Yes, I couldn't save him that night, but I could try to make sure other families didn't go through what we did. And now the Thompson family has established both a personal trust and a scholarship program in your name. How does that feel? It's not about me, Cole said, remembering Thompson Sr.'s advice. It's about opportunity, about breaking down barriers. That scholarship program will help kids who might never have considered lifeguarding as a career. It's about saving lives in more ways than one. The interview continued, Cole growing more comfortable as they discussed the program's details. When it was over, the anchor shook his hand. Powerful stuff, she said off camera. This will air nationwide next week. Thompson Jr. approached as the crew packed up. Well done. Father watched from his hospital room. He's very pleased. Cole loosened his tie. It was easier than I expected. Because you spoke from the heart. His mother hugged him. Just like always, they left the studio to find a small crowd waiting outside. Local reporters, some families from the Riverside Club, and to Cole's surprise, Jake and several other lifeguards in their uniforms. What's all this? Cole asked. Jake stepped forward. We got something to show you." They drove to the Riverside Club, where an even larger crowd had gathered. The club's entrance featured a new sign: home of the Cole Williams Lifeguard Training Program. The board voted unanimously. Mr. Peterson said, emerging from the crowd, "We're expanding our training facilities, offering scholarships, and creating a full certification program. And we want you to help run it." Cole stared at the sign. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Jake urged. "We need you, man. Not just as a lifeguard, but as a leader." A group of kids pushed forward, the children of club members who'd watched the rescue. They wore matching T-shirts with future lifeguards printed across the front. "Will you teach us?" a young black girl asked, her eyes shining. "My mom says I can take the junior program next summer." Cole knelt to her level. "What's your name?" "Destiny." "Well, Destiny, I think you'd make an excellent lifeguard." Her smile lit up the whole parking lot. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat. "The position would work around your college schedule, of course. Part-time during the school year, full-time in summers." "What do you say?" Cole looked at his mother, who smiled. "It's your decision, baby." He thought about Thompson Sr.'s words about platforms and responsibility, about Marcus and second chances and making things count. "Yes," he said. "I'll do it." The crowd cheered. Mr. Peterson handed him a new whistle, shiny and official-looking, with his name engraved on it. "Welcome back," he said, this time as program director. The celebration moved inside, where the club had arranged a proper ceremony. Cole's sisters arrived with their aunt, both girls proudly wearing their brother's story on their faces. Thompson Jr. took the podium, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. 3 days ago, this club witnessed something extraordinary. Not just a rescue, but a moment of pure humanity that transcended all the artificial barriers we put between us. He gestured to a large check mounted on an easel, the first scholarship fund installment. "Today, we ensure that moment creates lasting change." The Cole Williams Lifeguard Training Program will provide opportunities for young people from all backgrounds to learn life-saving skills, build confidence, and serve their community. More cheers. Cole spotted some of the same wealthy patrons who'd once whispered about him, now applauding enthusiastically. "And now," Thompson Jr. continued, a special message. The large pool screen flickered to life, showing Thompson Sr. in his hospital room. He looked stronger, sitting up in a chair by the window. "Cole," he began, "I wish I could be there in person. But I wanted everyone to hear this directly from me. 3 days ago, I was a man drowning in more ways than one. Drowning in prejudice, in outdated thinking, in the kind of ignorance that has poisoned our society for too long." He leaned toward the camera. "This young man didn't just save my life. He showed me a better way forward. A way that judges people not by their appearance, but by their actions. Not by their past, but by their potential." Thompson Sr.'s eyes were bright with emotion. "This program isn't charity. It's an investment in the future. In a world where someone like Cole can be recognized not as a black lifeguard, but simply as what he is, a hero." The screen went dark to thunderous applause. Cole felt tears threatening, but held them back. This wasn't about him crying. This was about him acting. He took the podium, looking out at the faces before him, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, all united in this moment. 3 years ago, he began, "I lost my brother. I couldn't save him. But he taught me something important, that sometimes the worst moments in our lives can lead us to our greatest purpose." He touched the new whistle around his neck. "This program isn't about me. It's about all of us. About proving that when we look past our differences, when we judge people by their character and not their color, we all rise together." The young girl, Destiny, beamed from the front row. "So let's make it count," Cole concluded. "All of it, every life saved, every barrier broken, every hand extended to help another person up." The applause was deafening. Later, as the crowd mingled over refreshments, Cole stood by the river. Its waters flowed peaceful and clear, giving no hint of their recent fury. Jake joined him. "Quite a change from 3 days ago." Yeah." Cole watched a family of ducks navigate the current. "Everything's different now." "You're different," Jake observed. "Stronger?" Cole thought about it. "Not stronger. Just clearer. About who I am, What I'm supposed to do? His phone buzzed, a message from Thompson Sr. You did good, son. Now the real work begins. Cole smiled, typing back, yes, sir. I'm ready. And he was. Ready to build something new. Ready to prove that one moment of courage could create endless ripples of change. The river flowed on, carrying its stories toward tomorrow. But now Cole was writing a new story, not just his own, but one that belonged to all of them. A story about bridges instead of barriers, about second chances and saving graces, about a current that carried them all forward together. 1 month later, Cole stood before the mirror in his new apartment, adjusting his tie. The morning sun streamed through windows that overlooked the grand Junction cityscape. His first day of college classes started in an hour. Need help with that? His mother asked from the doorway. She'd come to help him move in the day before and stayed overnight to see him off. I got it. Cole smiled at her reflection. Marcus taught me, remember? She crossed the room and straightened his collar anyway. He'd be so proud of you. First day at college, new apartment, new job. Speaking of which, Cole checked his phone. I've got that meeting at the club after classes. The first scholarship recipients are coming in to sign their paperwork. Your father would have loved this, she said softly. Seeing you help other kids like this. A knock at the door interrupted them. Thompson Jr. stood in the hallway, holding a small package. Hope I'm not interrupting, he said. Father wanted me to deliver this personally before your first day. Cole invited him in, unwrapping the package carefully. Inside lay a framed photograph. The Riverside Club's original deed from 1924, signed by William Turner. He thought you should have this, Thompson Jr. explained. To remind you where it all started, Cole studied the faded document, thinking about cycles broken and remade. How is he? Better every day. The doctors say he can come home next week. Thompson Jr. smiled. He's already talking about attending the first graduation ceremony for your training program. That's months away. He's determined. Thompson Jr. checked his watch. I should let you get a class. Good luck today. After he left, Cole's mother helped him hang the framed deed in his study area. It looked right there, among his textbooks and new laptop. You better get going, she said. Don't want to be late on your first day. The community college campus buzzed with first-day energy. Cole found his emergency medical services classroom easily. The trust had paid for a summer orientation program that had helped him learn the layout. Inside, he chose a seat near the front. Other students filtered in, some giving him curious looks. His face had been all over the news for weeks. The professor, a former paramedic named Dr. Martinez, started the class promptly. Welcome to Introduction to Emergency Services. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge someone whose recent actions demonstrated exactly what this field is about. Cole felt his cheeks warm as heads turned toward him. Mr. Williams, Dr. Martinez continued, would you share with the class why you chose this field? Cole stood, conscious of all eyes on him. I lost someone, he said simply, and I learned that sometimes the worst moments in our lives show us our true purpose. Dr. Martinez nodded approvingly. That's what this course is about, finding purpose and helping others during their worst moments. Now open your books to Chapter 1. The morning passed quickly. Between classes, Cole checked his messages. Jake had sent a photo of the new training facility construction. The indoor pool was almost complete. At lunch, he got another text, this one from Thompson Sr. How's the first day going, son? Good, Cole replied. Learning a lot already. Excellent. Remember what we talked about. Knowledge is power, but wisdom is knowing how to use it. After his last class, Cole drove to the Riverside Club. The parking lot was full, unusual for a weekday afternoon. Inside, he found out why. The entire club membership had turned out to welcome the first scholarship recipients and their families. 5 teenagers stood nervously in their new uniforms, their families beaming beside them. Cole recognized Destiny's older brother among them. There he is, Mr. Peterson called out. Our program director. Cole shook hands with each recipient, seeing his own story reflected in their eyes. The hope, the determination, the chance to prove themselves. Welcome to the program, he told them. Ready to get started? They gathered around a table where the scholarship papers waited. As each student signed, Cole remembered Thompson Sr., words about platforms and responsibility. Before we begin training, he said, I want you to understand something. This isn't just about learning to save lives in the water. It's about breaking barriers, showing people that heroes come in all colors. That character matters more than appearance. He touched the whistle around his neck. Each of you is here because you earned it, because you want to make a difference. That's what this program is about. The students straightened, pride replacing nervousness in their postures. Now, Cole grinned. Who's ready to get in the pools? Later, watching the new trainees practice their first rescue techniques, Cole felt something settle in his chest. A sense of rightness, of things coming full circle. His phone buzzed, a message from his mother. Marcus is smiling down on you right now. Cole looked at the water, remembering that desperate day a month ago. The current that had tried to take everything, but had given him something instead. Purpose, direction, a chance to change lives. Thompson Sr. had been right. He had a platform now, a way to make it count. The afternoon sun caught the water, making it sparkle. One of the trainees executed a perfect rescue approach, and Cole blew his whistle in approval. Good, he called out. That's exactly right. The student's face lit up with pride, and Cole remembered his own first successful rescue exercise. How it had felt to know he could make a difference. Now he was helping others find that same feeling. Breaking down barriers not with speeches or protests, but with action. With proof that people could change, that prejudices could be overcome, that second chances were possible. The river flowed on outside, constant and changing all at once. Like life itself. Like the current that had brought him here, to this moment, to this purpose. Cole touched the whistle again, feeling its weight. The weight of responsibility, of opportunity, of legacy. This was just the beginning. The real work, as Thompson Sr. had said, was starting now. But he was ready for it. Ready to teach, to guide, to show others what he'd learned that stormy day. That courage knows no color. That character reveals itself in action. That sometimes saving a life means more than just pulling someone from the water. The sun began to set, painting the water in shades of gold. Cole watched the students practice, each one carrying a piece of his story now. Each one a ripple spreading outward, changing the world in their own way. And somewhere, he knew Marcus was indeed watching. Smiling, proud of the brother who'd turned grief into purpose, loss into legacy, a moment of crisis into a lifetime of change. Cole blew his whistle one final time, calling an end to the day's training. But really, it was just the beginning. The river had taught him that. Life was all about new beginnings, second chances, the courage to reach out and pull someone else to safety. And now, finally, he understood the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest act of heroism isn't saving someone else. Sometimes it's letting yourself be saved. Letting go of the past. Embracing the current that carries you forward. Into tomorrow. Into purpose. Into hope.